Hey everyone, I'm going to show you this map I made a while ago, which is called Full Metal Castle. So I'm going to show you around the whole map and stuff, and then I'm going to talk about a lot of the different design choices that I made. I started making this map with the intention of mimicking a professional design process and also like design criteria. And for the most part, what that entails is pretty like straightforward and like standard. So I want pretty much every weapon to be balanced and stuff. I don't want anything to be overpowered, of course, which is probably like the most obvious thing. I think something a little bit more often overlooked is making sure that things aren't underpowered either. But then on top of that, I would also want to balance for stuff like alt fires and stuff. So for example, with like the shotgun here, I'd want to make sure that, of course, the shotgun camo is pretty useful to players. For stuff like the miner gun, for example, I want to make sure that the blaster and the different like building modes are all useful. And so on. You probably get the point from there. On top of that, I would also want block breaking to be largely a benefit to the map. And so a lot of maps, when it comes to like their destructibility, it doesn't like ruin the map like it does in some maps. Like some maps are ruined by being able to be destroyed, while other maps, they just don't really like it. They just aren't really influenced by it. Like say something like verticals is only like a little bit influenced by the fact that things can be broken and stuff. And so in this map, I wanted the block breaking to really change the flow of the gameplay. But not just that, not just like in the sense that things are incidentally broken and then they're like used by players. But part of what I also wanted is for players to be intentionally breaking blocks to gain the advantage on the opponents. And then also as like a sort of, I guess, wild card sort of thing, I also want ramming to be viable in this map. And not necessarily in the sense that you would be regularly killing players with it, because I think that would probably tend to be overpowered if I overly reward that. But sort of part of the thing with mimicking a professional design process is like just supporting all the mechanics that the game has, assuming that like they're all meant to be useful. So ramming, as far as I can tell, is meant to be useful and stuff, and so I've structured things in certain ways that it could be used. Mainly with this bridge here, with this like entry bridge and like pathway leading from it, and also this elevated pathway going around the map. And then and so that's like pretty much all like the gameplay related stuff. But on top of that, I also wanted to make the map especially visually appealing from certain angles. And so this would be like the angles that players are likely to be looking from. So for example, this is supposed to be like the entrance of the map. So right here is like a major view that I think needs to have like a pretty good composition of like different traits to be able to look good from this view. Same thing if you go over here, you pick up the OP sniper and you want to look for someone to kill, so you're looking through here or something. And I think this needs to be a particularly good view. Same thing with over here. Rocket launcher, pick it up, you're looking for someone to kill. This also should be a particularly good looking view. And my game stream is messing up. There we go. Same thing with these balconies. These are hard to like stand on the rails to get the view, but same thing. This needs to look particularly good. This needs to look particularly good. and stuff like that. There are like other examples I could show, but you get the point. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about like the different like gameplay features and stuff of the different areas, and then uh, I'll show you some other things. Alright, so first I'll talk about like the general layout, and it's a really simple sort of layout. So you have like this lower garden here, which for the most part is flat. It has some elevation changes, but not really to the point that like they're gonna significantly like restrict your movement or like your sightlines or anything. Like the most like apparent thing that they're gonna do is like you can sort of use these as cover for people who are at higher levels or something, or you can use to like sort of look over cover. And this isn't like significant cover anyway, so that doesn't significantly come into play, although I'll talk more about that later. So pretty flat area with like a doorway and extension here. That leads up to this, also relatively flat area, which I think has some more significant elevation changes. That's because of like the different ways you can use them. So like this is like an effective cover for like a lot of different directions, and same thing goes for this, although I think a little bit less so. But yeah, for the most part, also pretty flat. And then you also have these two buildings that have much more significant changes in elevation. And towards the blue gardens, these buildings have balconies leading out, and towards the red gardens, there's this whole bridge going through the middle instead, which has these things that you can shoot through. As do like all the buildings, like you can stand on these outside blocks right here to be able to look in and shoot inside. And they're also like generally easy pathways to go through if you like land on them. So you could like do a jump like right here, for example, land here, and you get an easy way inside like that. So all the buildings have several of these going around. And pretty much the last major feature is this wall right here that goes around 3/4 of the map. So elevated areas surrounding elevated area going around the gardens, and sort of just like being another pathway into the buildings. So you can see that's like sort of mirrored in terms of like general layout, but like it's not a completely symmetrical map. Like you can obviously see the differences in the different sides. It's just that like the general layout of them is very similar. So I think next I'll talk about the specific areas in a little bit more detail. I actually want to talk more about these windows here that are all around the buildings, because I think they're an important part of how the different parts of the map link up with each other. The general idea is that if you're up here against these windows, like you're sort of safe against people who are in these areas. Like you can crouch to sort of like prevent headshots and stuff, although they can still shoot you at your feet to decent effect. So that like, of course, you can like sort of do something like this. So like you're using these bars for cover, while you're still like able to shoot them. So either way, you're effectively using cover while you're able to shoot people who are pretty exposed for the most part. Uh, but like if you look at the general layout of the map, these buildings are a little bit less than a quarter of like the general play space, and these gardens are a bit more than a quarter of the play space. I think I said an eighth here, but I meant to say a quarter. So a little bit less than a quarter, a little bit more than a quarter, and like right here, you're looking at, you know, roughly speaking, half of like this quadrant. So let's say you're looking at like an eighth or a tenth of the play area, while your back is exposed to roughly a quarter of the play area. So generally speaking, if you're like just here waiting for players and like you don't really have any information that would tell you that someone's likely to be here, chances are someone's just gonna come around here or something and be able to catch you off guard and able to kill you easily. But if you're in a gunfight and someone tries to hide away in this building, it's just another option that you have as a way of combating them. So they can't just like throw grenades here and prevent you from coming in while they recharge their shields, or they like go through this doorway or something. There's a lot more you can do. So like if they want to come up here, you have these windows. If they want to hide in the corner, you can throw a grenade like that, and that's gonna help damage them. They could throw a grenade here, and then they could try to go through this doorway, but then sort of as a way to prevent like these options that you have because of the windows. But then at that point, you can come over here, and this is also a way you can finish them off. Especially since you also get grenades when you're coming this way. So that's a major part of like reporting more offensive play, and that's sort of like the general trend and purpose with all of these different windows, as well as sort of like the different benefits for like people's routing options. Something that I was really happy to see is that people were actively breaking through these in order to sort of get the edge on opponents. Like sometimes it was in combat as a way to get away. Sometimes it was also in combat as a way of like catching up to someone. And then other times it would be out of combat as a way to just as a way to get around, like probably more safely or something. Like I once saw someone do with a rocket launcher here. Well, not like with the rocket launcher. I think I saw them break through with a grenade. Not like that, but like I think they were here. They threw a grenade there. Better than I did, but they threw a grenade there. It blew up the other window, and then they went through to like use their rocket launcher alt fire right here, and they actually got some kills doing that. I was spectating the match. I'm not sure what like the whole situation was, but they seemed to know where like the fight was and stuff, which was pretty interesting. I think I have video of that, so I'll probably upload that separately to this video. But yeah, that was pretty nice. So I think these do their job as they're supposed to. And a point related to the windows here is that it sort of adds to like the general traits of these walls. So you can see all these walls have them in like varying amounts, and I think these are all significant amounts of gaps. Like, you know, for example, this wall has 2 doors and then some upper windows, one door, and some lower windows, and I guess you could also sort of count this as like a sightline that's available. Although I guess it doesn't interact as much with the lower garden because it's relatively hard to get to, and you sort of have to make a route to it. So, just for this example, we have these lower windows and this one door. So like people can be fighting anywhere in the garden. Someone can come into this building, and as I explained, you have these as options as a way to attack them from, as a way of finishing them off. But you can sort of edit these in different ways. So like you can, for example, you can block off these windows right here if you have a miner gun. And of course with blind mode you can place things pretty quickly. So it gets pretty easy to block those off. You're probably not going to be able to block off all of these safely. Like it's definitely going to be a big risk that's doing that. And with like sort of the other options around, and the fact that they could also like break with like a single grenade or something, the reward to doing that is also pretty questionable. So it's going to be hard to block off all these gaps. At the same time, it's going to be hard to make a significant amount more, enough of an amount more to poorly influence the gameplay. So even if I do something like this, right, I open up this whole wall right here, like 3 rockets. So now I think like from down here, I can more easily see the bridge. Or I think better would be up here or something. I think I poorly placed that, but I can make a whole new sightline for people to be able to take advantage of. So like I guess here would be a good example. So that I can see people who are at that doorway now. It's still not really taking away from this general trait of a wall with like significant gaps in it. So if the gaps are made, it's going to definitely influence the interaction between these areas, but it's still going to be the same general interaction, which I think helps control the chaos that could be caused by block breaking. So if this was like meant to be, for example, just a solid wall, and then which would allow people to more reliably hide somewhere like here, for example, which I think could be fine in like a different map design. I don't think like being able to hide here from players who are over here specifically is a problem. But in like a fully breakable map, if I had that design as something that you should be able to do pretty effectively, and that I sort of had other options as like counters that or whatever, however I decide to balance the map. If the map was breakable, then doing that in that situation could very easily be a problem, because this is like because that creates like a whole new variable that and like it's a whole new variable here too, but it's less, but I'd say it's less of one because you sort of have these sorts of options already. So you're changing a very specific sort of interaction, because now you have this new route and new sightline to use, but in general, the interaction between these two areas aren't going to change. You just have to act a little bit differently in terms of your specific positioning and movement in according to the different gaps and stuff that are available. instead of just using the area in a completely different way. Alright, so now that I've talked about that, I'll talk more about the specific areas here. I sort of feel like I talked about it already, but that could have been through my different recording attempts, so sorry if I'm repeating myself here. But I'm going to try to go through this first area kind of quickly, because I'm pretty sure I've talked about some of the specific traits around here. There goes my game streaming. So this path, like I said, I think I explained this is like one of the first things that I designed. I placed a lot of these things for like aesthetic reasons and like sort of like help like guide the player to like the different options and stuff. And then I sort of like built around like my general plan for this, to see how I could make these traits beneficial for gameplay. This path is a little weird because like more so like the extension of the path, because I actually have it extended as much as it is for like the sake of ramming. And generally, it's not going to be a very good place for you to be, because you're out here in this dead end and you're really exposed to anyone who has like a line of sight on you. You're not. The only way you can go for safety is like maybe if you're here with a sword, and then you can come up here. But otherwise, you sort of just have to go forward, and so you're more enabled to do that for ramming, but like sort of just being here in general is going to be risky. Unless you're in like sort of specific sorts of gunfights that that you can effectively hide here. Like you use this as covers, like say you're fighting someone who's in this area or something, like this is a sightline that is sometimes used. So that you can come back here and then you use that as like a sort of ram moment. You can also sort of do it the other way too. So you could ram here and then you have this extra space to be able to stop yourself. And then if you have a sword, that's a good time to sort of use that movement opportunity. I think I might have talked about these bushes already. These are like really momentary cover to help make probably to help make gunfights more interesting. They're also like sort of a jumping option, so sort of like that. But like using a shotgun or a sword, you give yourself the extra split second to reload or whatever, and then that should help you finish off your opponent by having like the extra sword charge or something. Let's see. I already talked about the trees. This elevation changes mainly for jumping, but I think it also helps to add interest to gunfights. Just having to look up a little bit rather than just having fully like flat ground and stuff. So like I could have just added like bushes here. Like if this was black, I could just add bushes here, for example. But I think this is just more interesting both visually and for gameplay. Similar case with this. It's not as good for jumping up because it's a little bit harder. But it's also here to help support usage of these windows, whereas this spot doesn't have those windows. There's also like this pathway in here. It's really thin pathway, and you have like this opening that people can shoot you through, so this isn't used very much. But it's something that's there. I don't think it's really a problem to have because it's not used very much, but it is like sort of useful momentarily. There's also this one, which is a lot safer, and it's used more often, just because it's not really exposed to like any like area inside the map. But still, it's really dangerous because usually it's access through opening the top right here. So if someone's down here, they're sort of safe until someone comes up right here, and you don't really have anywhere to go past that. So it's a really dangerous spot to be if someone knows where you are. If you are just like sort of using it to hide, you're not really doing anything. And you know, you're almost just like waiting for someone to come and kill you if you're doing that. So I think the most used path inside these bridges is this one right here. There's a lot more you can do with it. It is like, it's almost as dangerous as the previous one I showed, but you know, you can go a lot further. Like, I think a lot of people would drop down from this area, and then they would come over here, and then they would go through a hole that's usually here. I think I have a video that sort of shows people using the pathway like that in like one of my newest spectating matches. So I'll probably upload that separately from this, so as just like a drill gameplay example of how the map plays and stuff. I'll probably just like upload several of those as I record them, because I think it's really nice to see the different things that people do on the map when like I'm not there to influence it. So yeah, I think that's about all for the lower gardens. So I'll go up to the upper gardens here, where the changes in elevation are much more significant into how the gameplay is affected, because as you can see that with this, like, there's this mostly flat area and then things go up, whereas there's this mostly flat area here and you have this one elevation, but otherwise things go down. And they not only go down, but they go down and have cover alongside them. So someone can be right here, and they've a lot more effectively closed off line of sight than someone trying to do this, for example. Because you could easily because you can more easily just like jump or something to be able to see someone who's right there. Whereas this would require something like a grenade or coming closer, or even just a higher jump sometimes. Like, I think you can do that like right here, for example. You could sort of do that. But yeah, changes in elevation are a much more significant effect to the gameplay. So let's see. This fountain is mainly decorational. The main way it affects gameplay is, well, for one, by like, you know, it's sort of like a momentary cover for gunfights. You know, people can easily like move around it and stuff. So it's not like the most reliable cover, especially since it can pretty easily be broken. So, you know, that took out like half of it, half of like the thickness. So I think the main benefit I've seen from it is making turrets not like really powerful here. So like, you know, you place a turret somewhere like right here. You have a lot of ways to break line of sight with the turret, so it gets much smaller windows to be able to shoot you because of its delay. Whereas if this wasn't here, going between this, you'd take a lot more damage. So I think it's significant in that way. Let's see. The major gameplay difference with this garden in comparison to the other garden is that you sort of have like less pieces of like cover to work with on the flat area, but you have these differences in elevation here, which go down like towards the edges as opposed to going up like in this part of the map. So you can more effectively use that as cover. So people are fighting from like this area and this area. They're sort of gonna have a hard time finishing each other off, and that encounter would more so it would more so control like the what do you call it, the flow of the engagement rather than being able to kill someone right there. So if someone tries to be safe back there, you'd either have to come over here to be able to threaten them like that, and at that point they could just come around here. And you could also sort of try to check that by coming around here. You can maybe throw a grenade right there. But overall, it's going to be a lot harder to finish someone off through an engagement like that. It also largely affects how the rocket launcher spawn area is used. So if you're right here, someone coming through here is going to be pretty exposed, but then you have a decent ability to be able to kill them. But they can come up right here, and you could break the wall. You have a decent ability to be able to break through the wall, but they still have a decent amount of space to be able to be safe from. They could also do something like this with the sentry, throw it up here, and then I think you're pretty exposed to it, just like that. So yeah, overall, it's just a lot harder to be able to finish your kills in this area, or rather a little bit harder. And I think some of the jumping ability in this area affects that too. So from right here, you can jump up to this balcony here. But otherwise, and you'd have to be over here to be able to do that. So if you're right here at this lowered area, that's still a bit of a ways to go to be able to make that jump. So otherwise, if you want a closer way to jump up to one of these parts, you would actually have to do multiple wall jumps to be able to do that. So for example, you jump onto this bush and then use the bush to double wall jump up to here, and then my game streaming is making me aim weird. And then you do that to be able to get onto this balcony, and then you have this whole overlook from the bridge. So yeah, that's something. Yeah, not really much else to it. These are, I'd say, largely both jumping opportunities and decorative. They're gonna restrict very specific sight lines here, which you could also restrict by just going down like this. So they sort of allow you to get closer, but they don't really do much beyond that. I sort of wanted to make this garden area extend a bit further, so that you could, so that there was more space for these for these pillars to be on. But I figured that this would actually be, but like being able to effectively hide behind them would just be too safe. Because then you really like restrict skyline possibilities to like this doorway right here, along with anyone who's up here. And I think that's too specific to. I think that's too specific and restrictive to be balanced, especially when you're here pretty close to the rocket launcher spawn. So I can imagine, like strategies like the turret or something, to be able to play like pretty defensively in order to like have control of this. And so that could be a little bit too hard to deal with. Funny thing with these what do you call it? These supports here. They look different before. I can't remember how I had them looking before, but I remember someone like I think someone mentioned them like saying like how they liked the map, but like the supports were just like awful. Like I know that they were a lot bigger. Like I think they came at like a right angle rather than like I think this is more of like a 60-degree angle. I mean not a right angle, like a 45-degree angle. So yeah, I ended up changing them many times, and then like the person was like showing me like how like they would do it. I'd have to like check their names and like my messages or something, but yeah, that was pretty funny. But I think the supports look much better than they did before. uh, so I guess I'll go over this building next. So I think like this kitchen area right here is probably about like the safest part of the map. You can sort of be tucked way back here. You're mostly safe from someone who's up here, especially coming to the middle part. But at the same time, you're pretty cornered. Like you don't really have any space to go. Like even if you were to like break through this wall right here, you don't have like a whole lot of options. I think it's actually pretty solid down here. Okay, no, this is like the path I showed you before. So it takes a lot to even like blow through that, and then even then you don't have a whole lot of options, so you're pretty cornered. I think this is a pretty popular spot for using the turret, but and the turret is like I would say relatively hard to deal with here, especially if they like put it on the wall where it could be hard to destroy since you can't really use grenades on it. But overall, people are pretty cornered, and there's not much they can do to prevent you from dealing with them. I think the main mistake I see with people trying to combat someone in this area is that, like, particularly when they have a turret, they sort of like try to rush them, and then while they have like the cover here to like help prevent being shot, this turret is like constantly firing on them. So they don't really prioritize the turret or anything, and they just end up dying from it, even if they do end up killing the person here. But I think people gradually learn to just take their time more, destroy the turret. They can recharge their shields and stuff, and then they can kill the person here before the turret goes on before the turret finishes its cooldown. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but like this is one of the main things that I edited recently. So like this is like just a plain wall. There was no red carpet here or anything, and even this glass wasn't here before, so it looked really bland before. So one of my more recent edits was to like make this more aesthetically pleasing. This doesn't really affect gameplay much. I think it's just one of those things that sort of can add interest to gunfights, although it's not really used. through my testing, it hasn't really been used much, so not really like a positive effect to the gameplay, but not really a negative one either. While I think it is a good addition to the aesthetics. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but this bridge is a really dangerous spot to be. It's sort of just a route between the two buildings, and like you sort of have cover in the sense that like it makes you harder to shoot when going through. So you would have to shoot between these two block wide, 1 block tall gaps instead of having like all this open space to be able to shoot you from. But at the same time, if you're in here, you don't really have a lot of options to defend against people. So you can sort of hide behind like these like single block pillars. But people can, like, especially if they're like closer to you, people can move and stuff to be able to like prevent you from like effectively using it. Like you can't like hide behind these forever. Someone like if someone else is on the bridge, you'd have to be forced out of the bridge to be able to actually hide somewhere. So yeah, it's a really dangerous route, but I think, but it is useful if like you can be confident that, particularly that someone isn't in this garden area, and that if someone else is on the bridge, you can take them on, especially if like they got onto the bridge first. You can be here, and now like as you're in the gunfight, you have this option of backing up a little bit and then being able to go to safety, while they either have to have an opening in the side here, or they have to back up quite a bit to actually be able to go to the same level of safety that you would be able to go to. So it's pretty interesting to see it be used. It's like one of the lower traffic areas, but I think a strategic use of it is really good for getting edge on the opponents, because it's really safe from these lower areas down here, and plus it like helps add like a different routing to like the sniper spawn area. So like that's often broken somehow, and then I don't think I broke it right, but like I've largely seen other people like break it a certain way so that they can jump through here with the sniper instead of either being forced down or being forced into this pathway here. I don't know how other people do it, but obviously, you can make the hole wider in some way and then sort of just use it like that. So, I like seeing people use it. Other people will actually end up using it, I think, more effectively than I do. It's just kind of strange, but it's whatever. Like other random people too, like just like people who I've never like seen as particularly good. They just like they just found ways to use the bridge, which I sort of planned for, but like I just can't really do it myself. So anyway, oh, I forgot to mention, uh, this area has this one room right here, which is sort of like a freezer. You can see I sort of have these snow blocks. I usually use ice, but I have ice as a lock block somewhere else. This is another like sort of like dead end area, but like it sees some use as like a person's like last chance to be able to kill someone and stuff. you know, a sort of common thing between like a lot of like these points where you can be defensive is that, you know, they're designed to be used as like last resorts. So it wouldn't be a particularly strong area unless like you know you can use this to you know you can use it to kill someone. You know, you're not gonna, you know, go in there and just be safe in general. You know, you have to finish like the challenge. You know, you just have to finish the whole encounter and have some plan in there to be able to survive it. And I sort of have like those same sorts of rooms here in this area, which I'll talk about in a bit. So uh, this this room more like directly interacts with the pathway out here because from two sides it's like sort of lined up with the pathway, so that people over here can look into the room. So I would say that this area, in general, is more dangerous than this one. I think in this one you can more easily be cornered, but in this one you just have more general danger from all sides. So like you always have somewhere to go, but then they also always have somewhere to go in order to counter where you're going. So you can go here, and they can come out here onto like that outer pathway. I think usually your best bet would be to come out to this area right here, out to the balcony, because then you have a bunch of directions you can go to avoid grenades and stuff. Whereas if you're going down here, I mean, you can also like jump up, but they have more of a window to be able to prevent you from doing that. The statues are made mainly as like cover options, sort of like, you know, sort of as like checks, I guess, to like the fact that you can like shoot into like all these different directions and stuff. Like I guess you can see like the major difference is that you can shoot into this building, like you can shoot and enter into this building from all four directions, whereas this one you only have three. And I'd even say that like this one is like is more restricted than like the sides of this one over here. Just because there's less that you can see through these windows, where like you can only see the top area. Whereas if you were to come over here, you see the top area, but you also see a lot of the bottom area. And similar goes for like over here. You do sort of have this this dog statue here blocking, but if you move over to the side, then you can see more of the bottom area from down there. So yeah, probably, I'm not sure if I'd say it's like the most like it's definitely the most dangerous in some sense, because like you do have all these options to be able to attack someone from. But they are also lower traffic because, like, you know, people aren't going to be over here for the rocket launcher as much as they're going to be over there for the sniper. So this is I guess more dangerous if someone knows that you're here, because then like they know the possibilities where you can be, and they have more possibilities to be able to attack you from. Whereas if you're over here, I think you're in general just more likely to encounter someone. And with these rooms I opened up, you know, you have this basic storage room, and then you sort of have like this like knight's lounge, which I probably could have added a bit more detail to, but yeah, you sort of have those as like enclosed rooms that can be opened up. I'd say there's actually where you can do with these rooms, which is like probably like your like major point of safety in this area, because like people could like throw grenades up here, for example, right? And now like you sort of, and like especially if it's a grenade that's at the wall, specifically. So now you have this as an extra route to be able to get around. So if someone is down here, like down here at the doorway, they're shooting you. You can come back here for cover, and then you can also go up to get the height advantage. You can also jump up right here on the squirrel statue to be able to come up here, and then you can go onto the bridge, or you can do whatever. I saw like a video a while ago where someone was talking about Team Fortress 2 maps. I'll try to see if I can find it so I can link in the description. But they were talking about Team Fortress 2 maps and like different maps that they've made, and I guess like different tools between map design. And he was talking about how maps in that game, they have a mix of dictative and non-dictative traits, which is really important for that game specific balance. So like traits that would like dictate what you have to like do in those certain areas, as opposed to like traits that give you a lot of freedom in like the different options that you have. And I'd say that like sort of like the goal with building this is to have something that's really non-dictative. So I want people to have a lot of options in like really specific senses. But for those options to be balanced out by really general traits that are common between the different areas. There are some things that I am dissatisfied with on this map, which I'll talk a little bit about. I'll actually talk about both what I'm satisfied with and dissatisfied with about this map. So like especially in terms of like the goals that I set for it, I think like that's most important. And I think I did that pretty well. Say with the stuff like the block breaking. I haven't really seen people use like ramming much, but I think it's sort of a weird thing for players to like try to use. So like people aren't really thinking about having that as an option. So I sort of have to look. I sort of have to like observe like what I can do about that more, because I don't think like a particular structure is going to encourage people to do that. So I think so. I have to consider like how that works a bit more. So that's like sort of like undetermined. But in terms of like everything else, I think I did that pretty well. But the problem is, I think I sort of did that on a minimum level. So like the fact you can break blocks and stuff, it influences the gameplay to a decent degree, but I think I could do a lot more with it. And especially in terms of like verticality, like the way you change the flow of the map in this map is mainly horizontal. You don't really add any more like vertical objects or anything, so that sort of limits the ways you can influence the map through that. And like there's certainly some opportunities to do that, but like I said, they're really limited, which just limits that sort of feature overall. I think I also could have made the map look better in general too. Like I think it looks good, but again, it's sort of like a minimum level of looking good. Like I think I did like this part like particularly well, but in terms of like the other parts, the parts that came after it, like they're all good, but I still think I could have done better, especially with like this inaccessible area right here. It was actually supposed to be another part of the map you can access. Like this door was supposed to be open, so you enter through here. You can use the bridge here, and then you'd be blocked off somewhere over here. Just a fun fact, but I changed those plans at some point. But yeah, especially with like this wall right here. I added the banners relatively recently as just decoration, which I mean I'm gonna change seasonally. So they'll sort of represent, you know, what's like going on during the time of year. But yeah, I think I could have made this look better if I like thought the structure through a bit more. Uh, like I'm not sure exactly how I would make it look better now, but I think if I planned this part of the map ahead further, I think I could have done something. So yeah, stuff like that. I'd say also like the exterior of these buildings. Not so much the interior. Like the interior is a little bland, but you know, your eyes are sort of supposed to be drawn to other areas of it than this. Although I guess like some of the window areas could use work too, because that's somewhere where you would also be wanting to look. So aesthetics, sort of like the degree of a dynamic gameplay. Those are like the main things. Sort of also the balance between like the OP sniper and the rocket launcher. And I think I said before, like those are sort of innately hard to balance with each other, because the OP sniper is an upgradable weapon that you want to be balanced in the map, like just innately. While the rocket launcher is more so a side grade of the miner gun. So you're balancing an upgrade is something that you want to be. So, you know, if you take like the sniper and the miner gun, you sort of want them to be of equal value. And so you're balancing an upgrade of that with a side grade of that. So I'm not sure exactly how possible it is to balance them with each other unless like you really make structures that that lean towards the fact that the rocket launcher doesn't really have like a charge time and stuff. As like, you know, so you'd have to find a way to make that into a major advantage. Above like the miner gun's ability to like place blocks and stuff. I'm not sure how possible that is to do, but something that I also could have done was use hookshot, for example. Although maps are, I think, relatively hard to balance around that, I think it is something that is very much doable. And then a more minor thing is that I don't really like the idea of resorting to using invisible blocks. Especially like, well, particularly in like the interior of the map, not so much on like exterior areas. So like this right here is much more fine than this, because although it's really unlikely, this could actually sort of affect the gameplay of like areas unrelated to it. So like I said, it's really unlikely, but you know, you could be like wanting to like throw a grenade over there somewhere, and it just bounces off. Like I said, it's a really minor thing, but it's something that sort of bugs me a little bit. I'll actually show you what I'm working on because I am trying to make something that sort of fixes these problems. So this is Empire Center. And so you can see it's a much more vertical map. And it's mall themed. So like I think I'm able to add a lot more visual interest to it. Of course it's not done yet, so a lot of things are really empty right now. So this is sort of a preview of like what I'm going for. And you can see I have a hook shot here. I think I could bounce it pretty well on this map. And there's going to be a rocket launcher somewhere around in this area. I'm not sure exactly where yet. But yeah, with like all of these like overlapping layers, I think there's going to be more value to like breaking stuff that's going to allow people to move between different layers in different ways. So that's a major thing I'm going for. What else? The roof is going to be fully accessible here. There isn't going to be like anything blocking this. And you know, instead of just like blocking off the area, I'm planning on having features that help balance out the area. So for example, like it's really easy to access the roof, sort of like this. Sort of like that, so you can go over here and challenge people, and then you can only really and then the only way you can like be like unexposed from them is to go like over here, which also sort of has you exposed to people who are in that area, and so like you can go back and be like generally safe and stuff, but it also sort of leaves you open to people who are coming over here, for example. As well as like really limiting your ability to be able to attack people. So those are sort of the things I'm going for. I'm not going to talk about this in too much detail because firstly it's not done yet, and second I want to actually give it its own video. What I actually want to do is I want to finish the map, and then I want to talk about sort of the things that I planned for the gameplay, and then after that I'll test it out to see how those plans come through, and then you know, of course you all will be able to see the results of that as well. So yeah, that's about it. I hope you all enjoyed, and I guess I'll talk to you when this map is done or something.